In mathematics, we have given names to the different types of numbers that we work with. At the very beginning, when you first started learning numbers, those numbers were natural numbers. And natural numbers are the numbers that you count with: 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. No decimals, no fractions, not even a zero. Whole numbers came next, and they are your natural numbers with the inclusion of 0. Still, no decimals, no fractions, nothing like that. Then came the integers. Still no decimals, still no fractions, but with the integers we bring in the negative numbers. I'm using the dots to indicate that it keeps going forever in that direction, and I'll do it on the other side to indicate it goes forever in this direction. So those are the numbers that we started with: the natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whole numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, forever. And then your integers, your positive and negative numbers with 0. 0 doesn't have a sign, it's considered a neutral number. And then came rational and irrational. All of these numbers so far would fit in the rational family. Rational numbers are numbers that can be easily turned into a fraction. So 1 can easily be turned into a fraction by just putting it over 1. 2 can be a fraction by just putting it over 2. 0 over 1. 0 is a fraction, still over a 1. Your negative numbers can be turned into fractions over 1. But then you have your fractions: a half, 3/16, 5/8, and negative fractions: negative 3/4. Decimals: 0.3. 0.3 can be turned into a fraction pretty easy because that 3 is in the tenths spot. So 0.3 is the same thing as 3/10. 0.3 repeating can be easily turned into a fraction. If you were to go to a calculator and type 1 divided by 3, it's 0.3 repeating. So any fraction, any decimal that stops, any decimal that repeats, fractions, whole numbers, positive, negative, these are all rational numbers. So we started with natural, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whole numbers came in, threw in the 0. Integers came in, threw in the negative numbers, still no fractions though. And then the rational numbers, all of those, and then some more fractions, decimals, and things like that. Irrational numbers are numbers like, you might have seen pi someplace before, especially if you ever worked with circles in elementary school. Pi is an irrational number. If you go to your calculator and you type it out and hit pi, it'll give you 3.14159, and I'm not sure what comes next, but it is a decimal that goes on and on and on. It doesn't repeat, it never ends. That's pi. Square roots that don't work out are irrational. So that means, what about radicals that do work out? Well, since the square root of 4 is the same thing as 2, then the square root of 4 would be rational. It would be an integer because it's the same thing as a 2, and that's an ugly 4. Let me rewrite that. It's a whole number, the square root of 4, because it's a 2, and it is a natural number because it is the same thing as a 2. But the square root of 2, 1.414 something, 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 it doesn't repeat, and it never ends. The square root of 3, same. It's a decimal that will not repeat. The square root of 5, the square root of 6, these are all irrational. Square root of 7, square root of 8, but not the square root of 9, because the square root of 9 works out to be 3. So it would fit over here. And one last set of numbers. All of these numbers that you see on this board, every one of them are real, which means that we have a set of numbers that are not real. And more about that when you're ready for it. But these are the number sets that I want you to learn. Natural numbers, the basics. Whole numbers, the basics with 0. Integers, positive numbers, negative numbers, 0. No fractions, no decimals so far. Then we have the big set of rational numbers, which is all of these and some. And then we have the irrational numbers, which are none of those. It's a whole different set of numbers. Numbers that are weird, that don't work out nicely, like pi, and square roots that don't work out nicely. And then everything that I have on my board here is a real number. Okay? Now your assignment, I had some numbers, -8, 0, 1/2, 0.2, 0.2, pi, -0.85, the square root of 16, which is 4, 0.5 repeating, square root of 7, 5.8, and -3/8. Needed a little bit more room there. And what I wanted you to do is go through and list all the ones that are real, that are rational, that are irrational, that are integers, that are whole numbers, and that are natural. Okay? Real numbers, all of them. Rational numbers, a lot of them. -8, 0, 1/2, 0.2, that's 2/10, not pi. Pi is irrational. -0.85, the square root of 16, 0.5 repeating, decimals that repeat, decimals that stop are real. Square root of 7, no, that's nasty. 5.8, and a fraction, which is really the true definition of a rational number. Integers. Now some of these rational numbers are going to be integers. -8, 0, not the fraction, not the decimal, the square root of 16, because that's a 4, and that's it. Some of these integers are whole numbers. The 0 is, and the square root of 16 is. And some of these whole numbers are natural numbers. Well, actually only one, the square root of 16. Hey, take care of yourself. Have a nice day.